As a truck driver, I often spend countless hours alone in my truck, traveling through the night to reach my destination. But on this particular night of October 22nd, 2022, I was driving with two other drivers. We were driving from Salta to Tucumán in Argentina. The guy in front of me was new, only 25 years old, and just a month into the job. As we drove, I noticed his truck had a flat tire, so I radioed him to pull over so we could help him fix it. We were all laughing and joking around while we changed the tire, when suddenly we heard a voice say, "Our Father who art in heaven," and the rest of the prayer was heard as murmurs. The three of us at that moment turned to look around us, as if looking for someone. In that instance, I knew that I had not been the only one who had heard, but nobody said anything. We kept changing the wheel, and between laughs and jokes, we heard again, "Our Father who art in heaven." The laughter in our faces disappeared immediately, and one of them asked, "Did you all hear that?" I saw the faces on them who reflected fear. As we hurried, we heard footsteps as if more people were keeping us company, but we couldn't see anything. We continued our way for about 600 meters when I noticed how the other driver's truck started going from one side to the other, as if he was losing control. I radioed him and he answered me with a very agitated voice, saying, "Help me. Someone is here with me." He managed to regain control and stopped his truck. When he got out, he looked pale and terrified. We asked him, "Who was next to you?" And that is when he told us a faceless, white-haired woman appeared in his passenger seat and told him, "You're going to kill yourself." And she had grabbed the steering wheel. He told us that he never answered the radio to us. We were all haunted by the events of that night. I was driving on state roads in eastern Washington. I knew this route well and was aware that every 40 miles there were big dirt areas where it was safe to park cars. I closed the curtains and got cozy with my phone, planning to go to sleep soon. About an hour later, I noticed that the driver's side door had been opened. I hadn't heard any cars go by while I was parked, but I decided to take a peek outside anyway. I heard someone trying the passenger door as I looked out the front driver's side window into the darkness. I couldn't see anything when I peeked down from the top of the curtain, so I started the truck and turned on the lights. I was still too scared to open the curtains completely, so I peeked through the holes. Nobody knocked on my door, and I still couldn't hear any cars driving by. I took a deep breath and closed the curtains across my bedroom window to calm myself down. The wind was blowing and there was a lot of open space, so I went back to sleep, telling myself that the noise was just the truck's door swinging open and shut. But then I heard a strange sound, like someone was trying to pry open the vents in the sleeper. It seemed like someone was climbing into the truck as it moved and the door handles clicked again. I pressed the sleeper's alarm button, hoping to scare them away, but all it did was add to the noise of jiggling doorknobs, tapping on the windows and the truck's frame, and the hiss of air escaping the suspension. Suddenly, everything stopped. I heard another truck approaching and then driving away. After a short time of only hearing my own breathing and pounding of my heart, I waited for hours, afraid that whatever it was would come back. When I finally checked my truck, I found no signs of break-ins or scratches. However, every window was covered in tiny handprints, like a human toddler's, making me shiver with fear. It was a night just like any other when I was driving in rural Tennessee between Memphis and Nashville in 2006. I had picked up a load of construction materials that I needed to cover with a tarp, so I secured the load and started driving. Not too far into my trip, the tarp began flapping in the wind on a 2-lane road in the middle of the woods. I pulled over to fix it and decided to redo the whole thing. I started unhooking the bungee cords and taking off the tarps. As I was working, I noticed a man walking down the same side of the road, heading towards my truck. Initially, I didn't pay much attention to the man, but kept working on the tarps. When the man got closer, I couldn't help but notice his strange appearance. He had a messy mullet with bald spots and wore dirty white tennis shoes, one of which was not tied properly. The man also had an odd look in his eyes, as if he wasn't quite all there. As the man approached, I picked up a winch bar, a heavy metal tool, to keep myself safe. The man stopped near me and started talking. He said he had a long walk ahead of him. I told him that I couldn't give him a ride because of my insurance policy. The man seemed to understand and continued walking past my truck. I went back to fixing the tarp, but I kept an eye on the man. As I finished, I looked over and saw the man coming back, talking on what looked like a cell phone. But when I looked closer, I realized the man was talking into his hand, pretending it was a phone. As I continued to drive, my mind was racing with questions. Who was that man? What did he want? Why was he pretending to talk on a phone? I tried to rationalize the situation, but nothing made sense. The encounter left me feeling uneasy, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I had narrowly escaped something sinister. The rest of my drive was uneventful, but I found myself checking my rearview mirror obsessively, afraid that the strange man might be following me. I arrived at my destination and delivered the construction materials, but I couldn't stop thinking about the encounter. I even had trouble sleeping that night, replaying the events in my head over and over again. In the following weeks, I found myself avoiding that particular road, opting for longer routes that felt safer. I couldn't shake the feeling of dread that the encounter had left me with. I even considered reporting the incident to the police, but I didn't think they could do much without any evidence. Looking back on that night, I realized how lucky I was to have escaped unharmed. I don't know what the strange man's intentions were, but I do know it could have ended much worse. From then on, I made sure to be extra cautious while driving through rural Tennessee at night, always keeping an eye out for anything suspicious. A few years ago, I used to drive a delivery truck for Costco. During the holiday season, we had to make extra deliveries for toys all over the country. One night, I was given the task of delivering giant Spider-Man dolls to a store in Kentucky that had run out. I loaded up my truck and hit the road on 265. Around 3 a.m., something felt strange. I thought it was just exhaustion, so I tried to shake it off. But about 15 minutes later, the thickest fog I had ever seen rolled in, blanketing the road completely. I had no choice but to stop and wait for it to clear. Since I was ahead of schedule and there was no other cars around, I decided to idle my engine and wait. Suddenly, my truck died. No lights, no movement, nothing. I tried to use my CB radio, but there was no response. My phone couldn't pick up any signal either. As I sat there wondering what to do, I heard the sound of a child crying. It was a little girl's voice, slowly dissolving into sobs. Even though I'm a big guy, 6 feet 3 inches tall and 250 pounds, I couldn't bring myself to get out of my cab. Instead, I rolled down my window to see if anyone needed help. The crying eventually stopped, but then I heard something even more unsettling. A sinister chuckle. It sounded like someone was laughing at me. I rolled up my window and listened as the laughter grew louder. Then, just as suddenly as it had started, it stopped. The fog lifted instantly, and I was able to start my truck again. I drove away as fast as I could, stopping at the nearest truck stop. As I washed my face in disbelief, I couldn't help but wonder, did I really just hear that?